We now move on to Taiwan's Ministry of National Defence, which has detected 9 Chinese aircraft and 6 Chinese naval vessels in its territory. Among them, 4 aircraft crossed the median line and entered Taiwan's southwestern and eastern air defence identification zone. The MND, in a social media post, said that they monitored the situation and responded accordingly. On Saturday, the ministry also detected 17 aircraft and 6 naval vessels of the People's Liberation Army operating around the island. 13 of the aircraft on Saturday crossed the median line and entered Taiwan's southwestern air defence identification zone. In recent weeks, China has been reportedly boosting its ability to invade Taiwanese beaches with innovative new naval equipment. These are strong indicators that China is serious about its plans of potentially invading Taiwan. We will head back to Aditya Wadwan, our correspondent. Aditya, thank you for joining us. I want to really look at this persistent Chinese military action around the Taiwanese island. Can you provide us some more information on what's been going on and why China is increasing their military presence?
Well, Josh, if you see, this is a routine thing that the People's Liberation Army of China does this. It as per the routine, it violates the airspace of the Taiwanese. Taiwan, it violates water. Sometimes, it just the Coast Guard vessels of the Taiwanese Navy that are sailing in the seas, in the South China Sea, they always routinely, the PLA boat deliberately hit the boat so that, there is a problem, there is a tension made between the two countries. So far, let us just put this into perspective. Why has China just tries to intimidate the Taiwanese Navy by doing such, doing such tactics? It fully knows, that the United States of America has deployed its Nimitz carrier, which is a sort of a deterrent factor for the People's Liberation Army in the South China Sea, and that is the main reason as to why China does not fully invade Taiwan. Otherwise, what it does is it just wants to create an intimidating environment on Taiwan, because, and as we know, Donald Trump will now be taking oath as the 47th president of the United States of America tomorrow. And, Trump has been, even in the first, if we see the first term of Donald Trump, Donald Trump has been very vocal about, the Taiwanese American support for Taiwan. During his first term, the U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi when China was opposing U.S.'s Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, she deliberately went to Taiwan and met the then Taiwanese Prime Minister, and showed a firm solidarity with Taiwan. So America actually supports Taiwan in every way. So this, with Trump taking over as the president again, he might, diffuse. He might be instrumental in diffusing the tensions between China and Taiwan. Yes, Josh. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Aditya. We're first going to go to Andrew K.P. Leung, a China strategist who's joining us from Hong Kong. Thank you, Andrew, for speaking with us. I'd like to get a further understanding and maybe a bit more information on the back of what Aditya was saying there in terms of the reason that China is choosing to do what they're doing, given the support that Taiwan are receiving from the US. Is this a direct sort of power play, or is there something else that's at play?
First of all, we need to understand the international status of Taiwan. Taiwan is not recognized as an independent country by the United Nations. Since the President Nixon's visit to China, with the One China policy firmly established, under which Beijing authority is recognized as the only sovereign authority for the entire Chinese nation. But on the other hand, there is the Taiwan Relations Act, shortly enacted in the United States afterwards, to supply arms with Taiwan. But let's be clear, that act is not a guarantee that America would necessarily involve in the war in Taiwan. It's only the act only enables the United States government to supply arms to Taiwan so that Taiwan can defend itself. Now, as far as Beijing is concerned, President Xi has made it quite clear. that the unification of Taiwan cannot be left indefinitely. And the latest time for the unification of Taiwan is 2049, which is the 100th anniversary of the People's Republic of China. But with the election of a pro-independence leader in Taiwan, of course, Beijing is upping up the military exercises to deter the Taiwanese authorities taking provocative steps towards independence. Now, as far as the Taiwan people are concerned, most majority of the Taiwan people do not, repeat, not support independence. But on the other hand, the majority of them, over 50%, do not, again, repeat, not want to declare independence either. So they neither want unification nor do they dare to declare independence, and they want to preserve the status quo. Now, this needs to square the circle because at the end of the day, the status quo cannot be allowed to last forever. But with the election of a pro-independence leaning leader, Beijing is, of course, is putting more and more of these exercises as the deterrence. Now, as far as the Trump administration is concerned, unlike the previous administration, his stance to Taiwan is not that iron cast. Of course, he doesn't want Beijing to take over Taiwan, nor has he committed himself necessarily. He's going to enter into a war with China. Let's be clear that he didn't even want to start a war over Ukraine with Russia. And both Russia and China, of course, are nuclear powers. And any war with either these nations has very dangerous consequences. So I think that we are faced with this conundrum. But on the other hand, Beijing has issued 3 white papers on Taiwan. The last was coinciding with Nancy Pelosi's provocative visit to Taiwan. But all 3 white papers issued over the past 10 or 15 years reaffirm the priority for peaceful unification. Now, if people read the China's military tactics, the Sun Tzu's art of war, the best victory is fought without fighting. Now, but how is peaceful unification going to be achieved? The fact remains that more and more people exchanges are taking place. Lots of Chinese tourists are visiting Taiwan and vice versa. Many Taiwanese young people and businessmen, they go to China to establish their businesses. And in fact, the reality remains that over 1 million Taiwanese, together with their family members, are already living on the
Andrew,
mainland.
Apologies to interrupt you there. We don't have very long. We are also joined by Ross Feingold, who is a political risk analyst who's joining us from Taipei. Thank you, Ross, for joining us. We're looking at 2 governments which are very clear in their agendas. We have the Taiwanese government who are saying we are going to protect our independence. You have the Beijing government who, as Andrew mentioned, have one goal, and that is reunification. What does that mean for the people living in Taiwan?
Well, first, I want to correct something that Andrew said. He says 1 million Taiwanese are living in China. And I know a lot of media refer to that number, but even China's own census data doesn't show that. So I think we need to be careful about repeating what's in the media, because sometimes journalists are very sloppy with the things they write. So there are not 1 million Taiwanese living in China. But regardless, Andrew is correct that the Taiwanese people generally want to maintain the status quo. They don't want to declare independence and risk a war, nor do they want to unify with the People's Republic of China. So we're stuck in this situation, and that's been the situation ever since the United States de-recognized the Republic of China and instead recognized the People's Republic of China in 1979. And the interesting thing about the recent military activity, I think it's also putting down a marker for the incoming Trump administration that there is a new normal versus when Trump was president the first time. There's a new normal of greater Chinese naval and air activity around Taiwan, and the United States, the new administration in the United States, is going to have to confront that. And it's a bit of a challenge from China to the new Trump administration. And we're just going to have to wait and see, what does the Trump administration do in response.
Ross Feingold, thank you very much for joining us. Also, thank you to Andrew K.